Good night. Well, it's Ivan Mara. It's time at 10 o'clock. Did you eat your Chinese food yet, Ivan? No, I'm eating it after I finish my video. I'll eat it after I watch my video. Before I like eating my food before I go to bed. I have my appetizer here, like the rice and chicken and that kind of stuff, right? So. You hope to see 4 girls? Of course I do. I hope to lead girls, obviously. No, I'm seriously, our most CFL draft picks bust? Yes, they are. They're all bust picks. Even first round picks end up on the practice roster, guys. They end up on the practice roster, they get limited reps. Anthony Coombs was placed on the practice roster, I think, while I looked over his Wikipedia, right? And we never heard from him after 2021. Yeah. Yeah, I told you, they fade away and they disappear. You don't hear from them. They have bust careers. It's sad, I know. Cold, man. Yeah. So they just quit, yeah. You look over the Wikipedia, it says like they were released in 2021 by this like CFL team. And after that, you don't hear anything about them. They retired. They called it quits. How long they usually try? I don't know. Some draft picks played in CFL for maybe even 8 years, 9 years, and they try. Their hope is hopefully I get to be starting and everything, and they can't take the bias and they quit. Obviously, but yeah, this is bullshit. I quit. And don't forget, the American players have the edge in talent over the Canadian players, so they're at a disadvantage. But you also have the stupid 7 starting thing, and the league's biased towards American players. That's how it works. Why they biased? Because the Americans are talented. And they're the ones that are putting on a good show on television. So that's why the CFO respects them so much. Because the American players are the ones who put on the show on television, even though the Canadian players put on the show too. These are the guys that are keeping this supposedly growing this league. Because they put a show on television, that's how we make our money. That's why the Americans are very important to the CFL. Obviously. Because they put on the show on television, obviously. Because the Canadians put on the show too, but not the way the Americans put on the show, supposedly, right? Never gonna happen, no matter. But Nathan Rook's the hope. He's the hope, Nathan Rook. He's the hope, obviously. Yeah. I guarantee you all the Canadian players playing in the CFL. Ivan, thank you. Thank you for standing up to us like that, man. We appreciate it. Yeah, you're welcome. standing up to the league. Yeah, Ivan, man, I know what you're saying, man. I can't take the bias. It's bullshit. Like, this is happening in our own country. Yeah, man. It's sad. It really is, man. Yeah. Yeah, Ivan, even though, yeah, Ivan, that's fucking cold. Yeah, it's very cold, man. Yeah. I looked at a few draft picks who got drafted like way back in 2012, 13, 14 on Wikipedia. I read through it quickly. Yeah, they all like bounced around teams, limited reps, put on the practice roster. They're all busts. And you get the thing where they got released in 2021 and you never hear from them ever again. They all retired. And that's how you know the CFL draft is a crapshoot, man. And you wonder why CFL the fans don't take you seriously. They don't take your league seriously. Yeah, man. Why? At least they got to play pro football. Yeah, they did, but none of those like first, second round picks get to shine in your league. They all play special teams, or they get limited reps. Just sit on the bench, like, you know what I'm saying. You're expecting the Canadians to take your league seriously. Oh. Yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you were pretty harsh on the CFL. Yes, I was, because I didn't mean to be that rude, but I was white. I was very frustrated, and I'm very frustrated, and I'm very passionate about that. I was, yeah, I mean, you're very frustrated and passionate. Yes, I was, because I've been putting up with the American bias for years. And I'm like, enough's enough. I'm going to expose the CFL on my YouTube channel. They deserve to be exposed. Because it's really cold what you're doing, CFL. I don't mean to be an asshole, man. It's really, really cold what you're doing. You're blinded by the American talent. What you're doing is cold, man. Like, a lot of your draft picks are all busts. Yeah, even their busts. They're all bust picks. It's a crapshoot, the CFL draft, right? It's all about the American players and barely any Canadian players in the CFL. It's sad. It's almost like a betrayal to me as a Canadian. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Right, and that's cold, I know. It's very cold. I hope the league grows. It should be getting minimal growth in a good maybe 10 years. Because the CFL will never take away the American talent, so I hope the league grows. I think it will grow in 10 years. Maybe in 10 years it might grow to maybe a $280 million business, maybe $290 million business. It's minimal growth, but not substantial. As long as it grows, that's good for the league, obviously. I know the CFL will never take away the eye. We're never going to do that, man. Like, they're the ones who put on the show on television. I know. That's why it's never going to happen, obviously. Sarah? This video will only be an hour, guys. I'm tired. I'm not going to talk for an hour and 30 minutes. I'm too tired. Yeah. Who are the only Canadians you know who had really good careers who were drafted? Andy Fantouz had a good career. He had an amazing career. He was a first round pick. Enoch Mwamba had a pretty good career. He had like 600 tackles in his career. So he had a pretty good career. That's pretty good. 600 tackles for 13 years of playing. That's pretty good. Enoch Mwamba was not a bust. He had a pretty good career. I don't know if he'll be a Hall of Famer, but he had a pretty good career. But Andy Fantuz is a Hall of Famer, man. I think he's a CFL Hall of Famer. He has like 9,000, 10,000 yards receiving in the CFL. And John Cornish would have been a Hall of Famer too had he played. Obviously, as I believe John Cornish was better than Pinball Clemmings in the CFL. But Pinball Clemmings was more athletic than John Cornish. I remember Pinball Clemmings seeing him play in 2000. Me and my stepbrothers used to nickname him. We used to nickname him the Baboon because he has a baboon face. We nicknamed him the Baboon. Yeah, I remember that. It's funny. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Pinball Clemmings was more athletic than John Cornish, but John Cornish was more like beast. He was more of like a beast running back. He's not as athletic as Pinball Clemmings, but Pinball Clemmings is more athletic. But I think John Cornish beat Pinball Clemmings in rushing yards, but not total career yards with receiving yards. Obviously, John Cornish rushed for like 6,000 yards in like 4 years. So if he played for 10 years, he would have had like 12,000, 10,000 yards rushing. That's fucking crazy. He was an amazing running back. He retired because of concussion issues, obviously. That's why he retired. He only played for like 4 seasons in the CFL as a starting running back. And then he had to retire because he had concussion problems in his head right now. Yeah. John Cornish would have been a CFL legend, man, had he played for like 9, 10 seasons. He would have been a CFL Hall of Famer, man. Obviously, John Cornish, right? There's very few Canadians I know that will be. The only Canadian that I know who will be a Hall of Famer is Andy Fantuz. That's it, man. I can't think of anyone else. Oh, Andrew Harris, too. Andrew Harris is a Hall of Famer, too. He killed the league up here. Him, Andrew Harris, Andy Fantuz are the only 2 Canadians who are going to be Hall of Famers that I know. Skill position players. O-line doesn't count. Obviously. Is there any other players I can think of? Yeah, that's it, man. Alright, that's sad. I know it's fucking sad. Obviously. But there will be a few CFL Hall of Famers, star Canadian players who are playing now, who are in a new generation, but those are the only 2 people I can think of. I don't think Enoch Mwamba will be a Hall of Famer. He only had like 600 tackles in 13 years. He might not make the Hall of Fame. But he had a pretty good career. He wasn't a bust pick. He had a pretty good career. He was starting and everything. He was a star linebacker, obviously, right? I told you, most draft picks in CFL are busts. Even first round, second round picks are busts. They get limited reps. They're second, third string. They play a little bit of special teams. You see their stats. It's all like limited reps, special teams. They get put in the practice roster, and they're all bust picks. They're just wasted draft picks, man, because the CFL is just biased towards the American players. Yeah, let's draft these guys, but like they're not barely any of these guys are gonna shine. The American guys have to shine because they have to follow the rules, right? You have to follow the rules from the bosses, right? The board of governors, the committee who run the CFL, they have to listen to them. Well, hands and yeah, they have to listen to the bosses, right? Yeah, that's how it works. Yeah, yeah. That's sad, man. I know it's sad, man. That's why there's barely any Canadian Hall of Famers. The only Hall of Famers the only Hall of Famers for the Canadian people, the Canadian players are like the old linemen. That's it. Whereas the other skill positions, chances are they don't make the Hall of Fame. I'm saying, yeah, barely any Canadian Hall of Famers. There's way more American Hall of Famers in the CFL than Canadian Hall of Famers. That's how it works. But I respect the Canadian ones more than the American ones. But I respect Andrew Harris more than all of those CFL legends because Andrew Harris is Canadian. I have that respect for him more than I do the other guys. Yeah. It's my automatic Canadian bias, right? Well, hey, yeah. Yeah. I think the league will grow. It will. The league will grow, but it's probably going to have minimal growth. I believe in 10 years, the CFL can be maybe a $300 million a year business, 290, 280 million, $285 million a year business, which is pretty good. It's minimal growth, obviously, but it's not substantial growth. That's my point, right? Yeah, that's my point, obviously. So all the Canadian athletes, yeah, all the Canadian players playing pro football in the CFL, they're all I even like. Thank you for standing up for us Canadians. Yeah, you're welcome. The CFL does deserve to be exposed. They can't speak. The players speak who play in the CFL. They can't say shit. Otherwise, they can lose their jobs. Right? They have to keep their mouth shut. Obviously, about the bias going on. What they know about the bias, not stupid. Yeah, we know about the bias. We gotta keep. If we want to keep our job, we gotta shut our mouth. Yeah, you gotta keep your mouth shut. Otherwise, you can get fired. You can get released. You can lose your job. Right? Yeah, man. Was I'm not working in the CFL. I have freedom of speech. I can say whatever the fuck I want on my Savage YouTube channel, and I expose the CFL for the world to see. I don't need to be an asshole. I don't need to be a dick and whatever. I'm wearing a mask. If you think I'm wearing a mask, but the CFL does deserve to be exposed because this has been going on for decades, man. In the CFL, this is not like 10, 20 years. No, man. This is like decades. The bias has been going on with the American players. It's crazy, man. And it's been passed on to the league, hence why they're never going to change their mind. Because they believe this is the best way of growing the league. I disagree. I think there's a better way of growing the league with a Canadian homegrown talent, but if and put them through better training. But if they believe that this is the best way of growing the league by growing with the American talent to the Canadian people, growing the American talent, marketing the American talent to Canadian people, and they get minimal growth, then at least they grew, but they're only growing slowly, obviously. But I told you, I could be wrong. Even marketing it with a Canadian product will not make a difference. I could be wrong. I believe that's the key to fixing it, but it might not make a difference if they market the quarterbacks on the CFL and TSN. I'm saying, and the CFL panel talks about it, marketing universities. It might not make a difference. Obviously, fans still might not tune in. But I believe that is the key of fixing the CFL's growth struggles. But I could be wrong. I don't know. I might be wrong, right? I might be wrong. Yeah, there you go. I might be wrong. Yeah. So it pisses you off. I mean, yeah, because they're the only pro league that does this. I don't get it. Like, yeah, we want quality football. Yeah, you're trying to be the NFL of Canada, obviously. That's why you bring on. You're the only pro league CFL that does this, man. Whereby you don't trust your own nationality to put on good quality football for the people, for the Canadian people. It's very cold, man. Like you don't think the best players in Canada you drafted are good enough to put on good quality football for the people of Canada. When I watched the CIS Challenger game, I was entertained. And those are not even the best players in Canada. You know what I'm saying? When I watch the East-West Bowl, I'm entertained. It's good quality football. We want to be like the NFL. We want to take it to the next level. That's it. You're blinded by the American talent. You want to be like the NFL. That's why I even want quality football. That's why you bring the American guys here. But I told you, if you want the star players of your league to be the American guys who come up here, you now have no choice but to market those guys to Canadian people. And they're unknowns. They're an unknown product to the Canadian people. Yeah, right, they're talented. Yeah, they're talented, but they're unknowns to the Canadian people. They're American. They're from a different country. And you're getting what? You're not getting what? You're getting minimal results. Your television rating. So obviously something is not right. Either the fans of Canada don't care that much about Canadian football, or they do care, but it's not. The market is not with the American products or the Canadian product. That's my answer, but I could be wrong. One of those answers are obviously the truth. Most likely, they just don't care that much about Canadian football. That could be the plausible answer. Or there's a bigger market with a Canadian product. I don't know which is true. Maybe the other one's true. I don't know. You know. So the CFL brings the American guys. Yeah, the CFL brings the. I believe the CFL brings the American guys because they're trying to be the NFL of Canada. That's why they bring in all the American guys to be the stars up here because they're blinded by the American talent. Yeah, like we have two choices. We can either have the Canadian guys play up here, but it won't be as good quality. It won't be like the NFL, or we bring the leftovers and now it's more closer to the NFL. That's how we grow the league. But I see what you're saying, CFL. That's why we do that. I want quality football. Yes, I see what you're saying. But the Americans, when they come up here, don't have much market value, CFL. Because they're from a different country. The Canadians are clueless. They don't know who these guys are, man. They may be talented, but they're unknown talent that you're bringing up here who are the stars of your league. And you're marketing them to Canadian people and you're expecting substantial growth. I mean, yeah, that's probably why it's not working. Or the fans just don't care about Canadian football that much. I don't know. Those are my two answers. Don't even say, yeah. Some sour. Tomorrow I'm going to change the topic, guys. Enough about the CFL after today. Oh, I love to see what it is. I know, but I've been talking about CFL for 2 weeks. I'm going to change the topic. Because I ran out of ideas to talk about. That's why I kept talking about the CFL for the past 2 weeks. I'm going to change the topic tomorrow. Change the topic, right? I'll enjoy the show with you guys. And after that, I'm going to eat my food before I go to bed. I have to go to the welfare office. They said I'm missing the four information, the four stuff. I already gave them my all the required stuff they needed from me, and now I have to go to the office and settle things with the welfare office. Right? It's been almost 2 months since I applied for welfare. It's crazy. 5 years ago, I got my welfare check in 3 weeks. Yeah, this is a longer process, right? Yeah. So Ivan, if you were appointed CFL commissioner, you would pitch this to the committee. Yes, I would, but they would say no. Even if I have an amazing business strategy plan. I want to put them through better conditioning, training, better coaching. We can pull this off, market them on the TSN, do nationwide commercials of the QB, win his homegrown talent, CFL's now Canada, obviously, and put billboards in front of all the CFL stadiums before the games of the quarterback. It could work. They're like, Ivan, it's pretty convincing, but no, this is risky. We can't take the risk. Obviously. Now to ask them, okay, I'm gonna ask you a question. Why are you the only pro league that does? Why are you the only pro league that doesn't trust your own nationality? The best players in your country to put on good quality for your people, for the Canadian people. Every other pro league trusts the best players in that country to do that, but you don't trust the Canadians. Yo, you got a good point there. I know, seriously, man. Why are you the only league that does this, man? It's very cold what you're doing, man. Whereby you don't trust the best players in Canada to put on good enough quality ball for the people of Canada. We do, Ivan, but it's not the NFL. Yeah, that's the problem. You're blinded by the American talent. That's why you have to undo your blindness, man. Just because they're talented, see, that doesn't necessarily mean it's best for growing your league. There's context. As Herb Brooks said, all-star teams fail because they rely solely on the individual's talent. And I believe your CFL is not growing because you rely on the American talent to grow your league. But even though the talent's amazing, CFL, it's unknown talent to the Canadian people, and that's why your league's not growing, man. Sometimes better talent doesn't necessarily equal more success. You see what I'm saying? You're a genius, I know. Sometimes just because someone's more talented than somebody doesn't necessarily mean it's best for your business. You have to look at the context of the economy, you know what I'm saying? No, I ain't even saying that. You gotta look at all that. I'm sorry? CFL is the only league that does this, guys. Out of all the football pro leagues in the world, the CFL is the only league that doesn't trust its own nationality to put on good enough quality football for the people because they're jealous of the NFL, obviously, because the American players in the NFL are so good. We want to take the leftovers and have them be stars up here because they're trying to be the NFL of Canada. Obviously, the CFL is trying to Americanize the Canadian Football League. Obviously, as Nathan Rourke was pissed off about it, he called it garbage because they changed the rules to fit more like the NFL. So the CFL is trying to Americanize the Canadian Football League, and that's why they bring all the American guys. Like, you might as well call your league the AFL, man, the American Football League, CFL, because your league is just filled with all these American star players, and you're also Americanizing the rules too. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. Ivan, it could be the Canadian Football League. It doesn't matter what nationality is playing in it. I beg to differ, man. If it's called the Canadian Football League, it's common sense. You have the star players be the Canadian players because they're representing the Canadian brand, the Canadian football brand. But the American players in the CFR are representing the Canadian football brand. They're not even from Canada. They're from the States. Right? We have some stars. Yeah, you have stars, but very few, man. You have very few stars in your league, CFL. All your star players are all the American guys, right? That's my point, right? Yeah. Yeah, tomorrow I'm going to go back to talking about Zanus. I'm done with the CFL today. I'm getting tired of talking about the CFL. Hope you guys enjoy my CFL videos. I hope I gave you guys an educative course on how the CFL works. Yeah, we know now how the CFL works. Yes, you know how the CFL works now, obviously. Yeah, they start 7 Canadian starters for every team, and the rest are American players. That's how it works. Yeah, there's 12 players on defense, 12 players on offense. You start 7 of them who are Canadian, and the rest are the American guys. That's how it works. And don't forget, most of the starting positions in the CFL are the O-linemen. Some teams even start 5 O-linemen. And they'll have maybe 1 receiver and then maybe one free safety, and that's it. The rest are all the American guys. That's how it works right here. Ivan, what's the one position on offense whereby like the Canadian has like no shot? Quarterback. Nathan Rook is the rarity. Quarterback is pretty much, it's not gonna happen. And for defense, corner, it's very rare for a Canadian to see a Canadian corner, as the coaches don't believe that the Canadian corners are good enough to go against the athletic American receivers. So chances are they'll put that person on linebacker. Linebacker is not as risky. D-line is not as risky. Free safety is not as risky because free safety is zone coverage, obviously. Whereas corner is what? Corner, yeah. Some Sarah? Yeah. I do. The Americans who come up, do they know the Canadians drafted are the best players in Canada? Of course they do. If they're drafted in the CFL, they're obviously the best players in Canada. But even though they're the best players in Canada, the American players who are not the best players in America who come up here still have the edge over our best Canadians. Most of our best Canadians. As there's some of our best Canadians who are just as good as the Americans who come up here. You're not, if not better, obviously. But on average, they have a little bit of the edge over the Canadians. They have better training, obviously. Obviously. That's why the Canadians are a bit more valuable than the American players, because they actually are the best players in Canada, and they can relate to the Canadian people more. They have a bit of higher market value than the American players. But the American players who come here have more value and talent because they're a bit more talented than the Canadian guys in most cases. Not all of them, but in most cases they have the edge over in talent, athleticism over the Canadian guys. But there's some Canadian players who are just as good as the American players, if not even better. Obviously. Right? It just depends, obviously. But it's rare, though. Usually the Americans have the edge over the Canadian players. That's how it works, right? That's why they put on more of a show. That's why the CFL does that, obviously. They want to put on quality football like the NFL because they're trying to be the NFL of Canada. Obviously. Instead of being the CFL of Canada. They're trying to be the NFL. Oh, we're the CFL of Canada, man. I don't think so, man. You're trying to be the NFL of Canada. That's why you're bringing all these American guys as the stars of your Canadian branded football league. And you're marketing American product to the Canadian people. I mean, it's very weird. I don't get it. Yeah. This will only be a 1 hour video, guys. I'm tired. I just came back from swimming. You did your swim? Yeah, I did like my 15-minute swim. Today's like my 35th day I went swimming. 35th day. Tomorrow's my 36th day I'm going swimming. Yeah, man. Some Sarah? You think you open the Canadian? Yeah, all you Canadians in Canada, I open your eyes. All you CFL fans, I open your eyes. Oh, I didn't think of it that way. We knew about the bias, we didn't know about the television thing. I figured it out. Yeah, I know why the CFL has all the star players beat the American guys because the Americans they put on more of a show on television. They want better quality football. That's why they start all the American guys. They obviously don't trust the Canadian players to put on good enough quality show because they're trying to copy the NFL, be like the NFL. That's why they bring all the American guys. Instead of just removing the bias, the blindness of the American talent, just focus on the best players in Canada, putting on good enough quality for the Canadian people. I want to be like the NFL. Let's bring the American guys here. They're blind by the American talent. That's why they do that. I want quality football. That's why we do that. Yeah, I get it. I see what you're saying. You want quality football, but like it's the Canadian Football League, and you're marketing your brand to Canadian people with American product from a different country who are representing your Canadian brand. Like most of the representation for the Canadian Football League are all these American guys from the States, man. Yeah. Ugh. Yeah. Some Zara? So I something tells me if they marketed the homegrown talent and they made the change on them, and CFL's now Canada witness homegrown talent, the best players in Canada, they market that all the CIS universities, they do nationwide commercials, they market it on TSN, the CFL panel's talking about, you know what I'm saying, can Nathan Rourke or Trey Ford, you know what I'm saying, take their team to the Grey Cup and they're now franchise quarterbacks, that will now build buzz, and also the receivers and the running backs, Canadian receivers and running backs, they can build buzz, they can be huge in 10 years. Or it could flop, I could be wrong. But somebody tells me that's the key to fixing the CFL's financial struggles and growth, but I could be wrong. Maybe the people in Canada just don't care that much about Canadian football. I don't know. I could be wrong, obviously. I'm willing to admit that I could be wrong. It could flop too or it won't make a difference. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So the CFL trusts the American players. Yes, the CFL trusts the American players to put on a good enough quality for the fans, but not the Canadian guys. That's why they limit opportunities for them. The doors are closed on the Canadians because they're not good enough to entertain the television viewers watching the games. Yeah, they trust the Americans, but they don't trust the Canadian players. Obviously, that's why most of the star players are the American players. I figured it out, man. And I guarantee you, all you Canadian fans, I didn't know that, man. You opened your eyes. Yeah, I did. I opened all you Canadians playing the CFL too, right? I didn't know that, man. Yeah, duh. That's why the CFL starts the American players. They don't think you guys are good enough to put on good quality football for the people of Canada, man. I don't mean to be an asshole. It's just the truth, right? You're such a fucking dick. Well, I'm just saying it's the truth. Tell me I'm lying, guys. Yeah, Ivan, that's the truth, man. That's why we do that. Like the Canadians are not good enough to put on a good enough of a show for the people of Canada. That's why you start all the American guys. This has been going on for decades because you're trying to be the NFL of Canada. CFL's trying to be the NFL of Canada, obviously, right? Yeah, Ivan, you're trying to be the NFL of Canada. There you go. Yeah. I do understand, like, There's a lot of American football players who their dream is playing pro football, but like they didn't get their NFL opportunity. Obviously, hence their rejects. Obviously, I just right there. Well, I'm just telling you the truth, but they're NFL rejects. So they want to play pro football, and then they get an opportunity to play pro football up here, and they get to be CFL stars, and the fans love them and everything. But I told you, even though a lot of them play pro football up here, CFL, and the fans love them, obviously, some of them ditch your CFL to play in the NFL, and that means they use your league to get an NFL opportunity. And you know this CFL, and then you bring these guys up here anyways. We know that, but we don't care. Like, we're blind by talent. They're so talented. We have to bring those guys up here and have them be the stars of the league. Guys you never want to be here to begin with, they're here by default, and you want to grow the league with those guys and market those guys to the Canadian people. And you wonder why your league's having minimal growth. Because I'm not kidding around, there are quite a bit of guys who the CFL's been marketing on the CFL and TSM promo. And then a year goes by and you get the news this receiver left to the NFL. So like they use the CFL to get another NFL shot. Yeah, as a lot of these American guys see the CFL as like a developmental farm league. Yeah, okay, my goal is to play in the CFL. I do well for maybe 2 seasons. Hopefully I get another NFL shot, obviously. And there's some of them who just stay. Okay, this is good enough for me. You know what I'm saying? They think it's a shitty league and they play up here. They have a blast playing up here. You know what I'm saying? And the GMs offer them a good contract where they can make a great living. And look, man, like even though the NFL can pay you more, your chances of starting there is not high. Just stay up here. The fans love you. You get to be a CFL star. You're still successful. Yeah, okay, and they stay here. And I respect that. The American players who stay up here. But a lot of them are using the CFL to get another NFL shot. I don't even ask them CFL. That's just the truth. Yeah, we know that. We don't care. They're very talented. This is how we grow the league. Yeah, because the CFL is blind by the American talent. Very weird. Sorry. Yeah. Why is the CFL viewed as a minor league to some American people? It's because of the American players, obviously. The American players are guys who didn't get their NFL opportunity and they end up here. And a lot of them use the CFL to get another NFL shot. Hence why some people in America see the CFL as a minor league. Even some Canadians see it as a minor league because the Americans playing in the CFL are not the best players in America. The players who didn't make the NFL, right? Oh, and hence why some people see it as a developmental minor league. They don't. The Canadian players is not because of the Canadian players. No, the Canadian players are actually the best players in Canada. It's the American players you comp here who are not the best players in America. They're NFL They're people who didn't get an NFL shot. They end up here, and a lot of them use the CFL to get another NFL opportunity. That's why they see it as a minor league. And the CFL knows that. Yeah, we know that. We don't care. Like they're talented. They're very talented. Let's just bring all these guys up here, and hopefully we can keep them and they don't go to the NFL. But like but a lot of GMs lose these amazing American players who play up here with really amazing athletes who play up here to the NFL because that was their dream. Their dream was not playing. Am I right, guys? Yeah, you're right. Like even though we didn't get our NFL shot and we're rejects, and even though we're amazing athletes and we got to be CFL stars up here, this is not our dream. And some of them who are CFL stars, man, they leave to the NFL, man. Like that's kind of cold, right? Like, and the GMs are pissed off when they lose their players. I'm like, guys, man, like this is what you should have expected. All these American guys you bring up here, their dream is not playing here. It's playing the NFL. And then when they're CFL stars and you offer them a lot of money, they still turn it down because they want to get another NFL opportunity. Yeah. Obviously. Do the GMs really try to keep them here? Yeah, they do, man. They do. The Canadian, the CFL GMs, if the guy's a star player, they really, really try their best to keep them here, but they can't compete with the NFL. They don't have the kind of pockets that the NFL has CFL. They offer them a lot of money, like housing and maybe like a car or something like that, and they still say no. Yeah. Because the NFL can pay way more than what I'm making up here. And don't forget, you have the rates. The American guys who play up here, they're affected by the rates, right? Because they live in the States, so they're affected by the rates. Don't forget that, right? CFL can't compete with the NFL. It's not even close, man. You can't compete with the NFL. CFL, right? You can't compete with the NFL, yeah. I'm not gonna lie, though, man. The American guys, even though they didn't get their NFL opportunity, man, they're very very talented players, man. The American guys who play up here, they're amazing football players. They really are. They just didn't get their NFL opportunity. Some of them are not good enough for the NFL. Most of them are not good enough for the NFL, and some of them just didn't get an NFL opportunity. They just were not lucky enough to play in the NFL. But when they play in the CFL, the guys who come here from the States who play in the CFL are fucking amazing players, man. They're amazing players. You watch the CFL highlights, you'll see what I mean. They're fucking amazing players, obviously. Amazing players. That's why the CFL loves the Americans so much, because they put they put on a show, man. It's quality football, I know. But if you want to bring those guys up and have them be the stars of your league, you have no choice, CFL, but to market them as the name people. And hopefully we grow the league that way. But like, you expect the league to grow substantially, CFL, by marketing the Canadian Football League with unknown American talent. And you expect your league to just somehow grow. I mean, instead of known Canadian talent. Very weird. Yeah, but we do market Canadian players. Yeah, but very few. You market maybe one running back, maybe, you know what I'm saying, maybe two receivers, and that's it, man. Three receivers, and that's it. And the rest are all these American guys. So when they market the Canadian guys, the spotlight's still kind of taken away from the star Canadian players, because it's just a bunch of, like, the CFL and TSN panel, they always just rave about all these American players, star players in the league. Some Sarah? Yeah. Almost other guys. Alright, the Super are sick, I know. Alright, if the CFL was just the best players in Canada, would it be seen as a minor league? No, not anymore, because then now it's the greatest players playing in that country. It's no longer looked at as a minor league. The CFL is only looked at as a minor league because of the American players. You know, the American players who come up here are fucking amazing. They're amazing athletes. They're fucking amazing players. Obviously, they're NFL rejects. That's my point, right? That's why a lot of the American football players and fans, they see the CFL as a minor developmental league for the American players who didn't get their NFL shot. And don't forget, a lot of them use the CFL to get another NFL opportunity. There's some success stories of CFL players. Yes, there is. There's one D lineman, I forget his name. He played for the BC Lions like back in I think it was like 2008 or something like that. He killed the league. You know what I'm saying? And the CFL obviously tried to keep him, and he said no. He was a CFL star, and he went to the Wally one of those I'm talking about. I forget his name. Amazing D lineman for the BC Lions, and then he went to the NFL, and now he became a starting D line in the NFL. That's one success story. Yeah, obviously. There's a few success stories of the CFL, and Warren Moon's another success story too. Warren Moon was originally not drafted in the NFL. He's an undrafted, unsigned free agent. He played in the CFL. He got his opportunity to play pro football in the CFL. He killed it up here, and then he got his NFL opportunity, and he became a legend in both leagues. That's why Warren Moon's very respected, obviously. He's a legend in both fucking leagues. Obviously. In both leagues. He's a legend in both leagues, man. Yeah. All you American football players, you know Warren. Yeah, we know Warren Moon. Yeah, Warren Moon played in the CFL too. And he won 5 Grey Cups straight in the CFL, and he went to the NFL. And the CFL obviously offered him a lot of money to keep him, but he said, nah, guys, my dream is playing in the NFL. That's how you know, like, these American guys who come here to CFL, this is not the dream. We know that we don't care. Like, we don't care, like, they're talented. Yeah, you're blinded by the talent. You're just blinded by the talent. You're crazy people. Yeah, blinded by the talent, man. Sorry. I told you the NFL and CFL are two different systems, two different games. They're two totally different games. It's not the same form of football, right? It's a different game, honestly. Different game, honestly, right? Yeah, yeah. Almost under, guys. And tomorrow I'll go back to talking about Zeus and Sky Source. Yeah. Do you see the CFL as a minor league? No, I don't. It's not a minor league. The CFL is its own. It's its own pro league up here in Canada, obviously, but you kind of do see it as a little bit of minor league because I know a lot of these American guys who did not get their opportunity are using our CFL to get on an NFL shot. So you kind of have that feeling. It's kind of a developmental league for some of the American guys to get another NFL shot. So it's like, but it's not a minor league. It's its own pro league up here, obviously. Yeah. Whereas the Canadian players don't see the CFL as a minor league because they're not. The Canadian players don't use the CFL to get an NFL shot. No, no, no. Their dreams playing here. They don't care about the NFL. Or for the American guys, it's not the same. It's not a similar. It's not a similar. A similar situation, right? A lot of those guys, their dream was playing in the NFL. When they get an NFL shot, they take it. Some of them turn it down. Quite a lot of them turn it down, but a lot of them take their NFL opportunities and they play in the NFL. That's their dream, man. It's playing in the NFL. It's not playing here, the Americans. The CFL knows that. We know that. We don't care. We're gonna bring these guys up. We're gonna have them put on the show. We're gonna market them to Canadian people. Hopefully, our league grows. You know what I'm saying? Because the CFL's they're blind by the American talent. Yeah. Instead of the best Canadian players who actually want to play here. Like this is their dream CFL. The best Canadian players in the country, their dream is playing in your CFL. The American players, this is not their dream, man. They're only here by default, and you're going to give those guys their opportunity to shine in our country, and they're unknown talent, and you market them to Canadian people, and you wonder why your league's not growing. I think that kind of answers your question, don't you? I'm saying, yeah. Sarah. So the GMs really do try their best to keep the players here. Oh yeah, they do. They offer them a lot of money, like a good contracts, but it's not the money that the NFL can pay them. They can't compete with the NFL. They even tell them, yeah, sorry, we can't compete with the NFL. We can pay you more money, but we can't compete with the NFL. You're a CFL star here. The fans love you. This is good money for you. You're making great living, and I'm saying, and they offer them housing and that kind of stuff, and they still turn down. Sorry, man. I'd rather play out. My dreams playing NFL is not playing here, and they leave. And sometimes they come back when they get released, obviously, from the NFL. Obviously. But most CFL players, they try out the NFL maybe one more time. If they get released, they just stay up here. Obviously. Ricky Ray went to the NFL too. Yeah, Ricky Ray also used the CFL to get an NFL shot too. He was a rookie, and in 2005, 2006, he went to the NFL, obviously. And then he was third string. Yeah, he became third string QB, and then he left the NFL to play in the CFL. And after that, he had an amazing career up here in the CFL. Ricky Ray. Yeah. Sarah? Ivan, we know their dreams not being here, but we don't care. They're talented. Yeah, you're blinded by the talent, no matter what. Yeah, we're blinded by talent, man. We don't care if they never want to be here, man. They're very talented. We need to bring these guys up here to put on a show for us for our CFL games, Ivan. You know what I'm saying? And you also want to market those guys to the Canadian people who never want to be here to begin. They're only here by default. Yeah, Ivan, that's how we grow the league, Ivan. I'm like, okay, that's a very weird way of growing the league. Instead of the best players in Canada who actually want to play up here, but I mean, yeah. Yeah. Ivan, is it just the Canadian coaches? Is it just the American coaches that have the American bias? No, man. Even the Canadian coaches have the bias too, because it's what it's they want to win games, right? The coaches have they want to keep their jobs. So yeah, like, even though like I'm a Canadian man, like they also have the bias towards the American players because they want to win games. They have to start their American players. That's how it works. Otherwise, if they lose games, they can lose their job. They can get fired, obviously. Even the Canadian GMs and coaches have their bias. And don't forget, they have to follow the rules. The bosses of the CFL, the board of governors, whatever it is, the committee, they're the boss. They have to listen to them. Yeah, like, okay, draft the best players in Canada, if it even makes a difference, right? It's a crapshoot. And start have seven of them start, and the rest of them have them be the American players. But some teams even start maybe even 8 Canadian players. But it's you have to start a minimum of 7. But if the Canadian players are very good, they might start maybe 8 or something like that. But in most cases, it's just 7, and the rest are all the American star players. That's how it works in the CFL. So, Sarah. That's what the American players look down on the Canadian players. Of course they do. All the American guys who come up here who didn't get their opportunity, you know what I'm saying? They see all these Canadians. Yeah, these Canadian players got drafted, so that they must be the best players in Canada. And like we're not even the best players in the States, and we're starting over them. We're better than these Canadian guys. Yeah, they look down. My younger brother told me about that. Oh, did he? He said something like yeah, even though the American players are better, man, like this is our league. Yeah, he said that. He told me that. Yeah, this is our league. This is actually our league. This is not your league. Your league is the NFL. Yeah, obviously. So the American players look down on the Canadian players. Of course they do. They know they're better. Yeah, we're a bit better than these Canadian guys. They look down a little bit, obviously. There's like we're all starting up here. We're all the stars, and there's plenty of Canadian stars. They're not stupid. They know. The American players in CFL are not stupid. They know, obviously. But the Canadian players also look down on them too because they know those players are guys who didn't get their NFL opportunities. So they look down on them too, obviously. Duh, it's common sense, right? Yeah, they're all these players are not the best players in America. They're the guys who didn't get their NFL opportunity. Obviously, so they look down a little bit too. Like, duh, it's common sense. Yeah, I mean, we do. We know that they're not in the NFL. They're here because they're here by yeah. These guys who come here are here by default. Well, I'm saying yeah, they're here by default, right? I mean, that's funny. I know all you ever plays. I mean, that's funny. I'm saying they both down each other. Of course they do. They both look down at each other. Like duh. I gave you the reasons why. I mean, that's funny. I know. It's funny, son. Almost on it, guys. Do a lot of the Americans think the CFL is some shitty league? Yeah, they do. There's a lot of American players who did not get their involved. They think, yeah, I'm gonna come to the CFL and kill the league, and they go to training camp and they get cut, man. Yeah, I'm gonna go against this Canadian lineman. I'm gonna beat him and everything, and they get cut. Obviously, lineman is the only position whereby the Americans and like lineman, the Canadian lineman, the American lineman, there's not that much of a difference in quality. Like they're just as talented. I think you GMs would agree. And there's not really much of a difference when it comes to linemen. The Canadian linemen, they're just as good as the American linemen who come up here. It's the skill positions where you see the difference in quality. The American players have a bit of the edge in most cases. They're a bit more talented and more athletic than the Canadian players. The Canadian players are athletic too, but they're not as athletic as the American guys. The American guys have the edge in talent, athleticism, speed, agility, all that stuff, right? Whereas the Canadian players are have that too, but they're not as athletic as the American guys in most cases. That's why the American guys start, because they're a bit better than the Canadian players, obviously, right? But not all the time. There are some Canadian star players who are just as good as the American star players, and some of them are even better. As Brad Sinopoli was better than a lot of the receivers playing the CFL. I think 1 year he led the league in yards, man, in receiving yards. Yeah, like 1,000+ yards receiving or something like that. He's Canadian. Andrew Harris, I believe, was like the best, like one of the best, if not the best running back in the CFL when he played. John Cornish was the best running back in the CFL when he played. Those were all Canadians. Enoch Mwamba was one of the best linebackers in the CFL when he played. I believe 1 year he led the league in tackles, I believe. I might be mistaken, I'm not sure. Yeah. But in most cases, the Americans have the edge in talent over the Canadians. That's why they're starting. They put on more of a show, right? That's why the CFL does that, obviously. Yeah. Nathan Rook. Nathan Rook is just as good as all these American quarterbacks. He's even better than some of the other quarterbacks. Nathan Rook is better than even some of these American quarterbacks playing in the CFL right now. Yeah, he's better than some of them. He's Canadian. But he has NCAA training, though. Nathan Rook played in the NCAA, so he has NCAA training. But Trey Ford is an amazing quarterback, too. He's just as good as all these American quarterbacks. Some of them, right? He's just as good as some of the American quarterbacks, but he's an amazing quarterback, but he wasn't able to win games for the Edmonton Eskimos. That's why they benched him. But I believe the CFL never should have done that. You should have given Trey Ford a year to learn and grow. Like, you don't just bench him after 5 games. You give all these other QBs who have bad performances longer windows. And for Trey Ford, because he's Canadian, you give him like a 5-game window and you start another QB over him and you bench him. You should give him at least a good year to grow. And then he improves from his mistakes. And the following year, if he does bad, that's when you can bench him. But the coaches also need to keep their jobs, so they have to win games. So that's why they have to do that, right? On him, and yeah. Some Sarah. Trey Ford's an amazing quarterback. I saw his highlight on YouTube, his CFL highlight on YouTube. He's fucking amazing, Trey Ford. He's kind of like a Michael Vick. Trey Ford is like a Michael Vick, too. He's an amazing quarterback, man. Trey Ford. Amazing fucking quarterback, man. Is he better than Nathan Rook? No, Nathan Rook is better. Because he's actually able to win games for his team. Whereas Trey Ford is more athletic than Nathan Rook, but Nathan Rook is a better quarterback. Nathan Rook is a pocket passer. But he can also run, too. He's pretty athletic, but he's not as athletic as Trey Ford. Trey Ford's very athletic. Obviously, he's kind of like a Brandon Bridge. He has that Michael Vick style of play. Trey Ford. Yeah. Whereas Nathan Rourke is a pocket passer, but he can also run too. He ran a touchdown last game against Calgary, and he outshined the American quarterback, Bernard Adam Jr., whatever his name is. He outshined him in that game. He did better than that quarterback in that game. That guy's American. And that's how you know CFL. You just give these Canadian players an opportunity to shine. You're not. It's not that much of a difference. Ivan, it's not that much of a difference about the Americans are more talented. I know, but you downgrade the Canadian talent, man. It's ridiculous, man. Just give them a moment to shine, and they can do good things. You know what I'm saying, in the league. But you close the doors on the Canadians, and you open all the doors for the American players who come up here. In their own fucking country, in our own fucking country. It's sad, man. Some Zara? I'm talking to you, Steve. Well, you're gonna have to find a way to get the what? The what? People in Canada interested in your football game, CFL. I'm gonna keep saying that. You're gonna have to find a way to get them interested in your CFL games and interested in your star players because you've been seeing them grow, so you're gonna have to find a way to see them games. And anyways, here's who guys enjoyed my CFL video. I think I'm done with the CFL topic. Oh, even I love your CFL because I know, but I'm gonna change the topic tomorrow. I might talk about Kazanis and Sky Source again. This is Ivan Murray. I'm signing up. Peace. Peace out, guys. Hope you guys enjoy my CFL series. Peace. Don't hate him, son.